And good night. Thanks for joining the panel. Thank you.
Thank you. It's good fun.
Thanks to Gary Moore in Christchurch. That's it for the panel today. Thank you all for all your texts and feedback. Lisa Owen is with Checkpoint next.
Ahi Marie, RNZ News at 5. Ko Sarah Thompson, tōko ingoa. The Prime Minister says moving Auckland out of Alert Level 4 next week does not mean the job to stamp out the latest outbreak is done. Tāmaki Makaurau will move to Alert Level 3 at midnight tomorrow and remain there for at least 2 weeks. The rest of the country will stay at Alert Level 2, with gathering limits increased from 50 to 100. The Prime Minister says the easing of restrictions across the board does not mean the fight to eliminate the Delta outbreak is over.
We are not stepping out of level 4 because the job is done, but nor are we moving because we don't think we can achieve the goal of stamping out COVID-19. We are moving because level 3 still provides a cautious approach while we continue to stamp out COVID-19.
Jacinda Ardern says people's bubbles must remain exclusive in level 3 and anyone who can should continue working from home. The Director-General of Health has imposed a de facto Level 4 lockdown for 5 days for the Waikato region, where 3 community cases were discovered at the weekend. The cases are household contacts of a prisoner on remand who has returned to Auckland and tested positive at his court hearing last Friday. Dr Ashley Bloomfield says the area under the Section 70 notice is north of Highway 2 in the Firth of Thames, and a map will be put on the Health Ministry's website. Anyone who lives and works in the region must stay home and check for symptoms. The Restaurant Association describes Auckland's move down alert levels as a glimmer of hope, with hospitality businesses able to serve takeaways from Wednesday. But it says takeaways are less profitable, with takings typically 40 to 60% down on normal revenue, and some hospitality businesses can't serve takeaways at all. The association wants the government to consider financial relief for the industry. Meanwhile, the Auckland Chamber of Commerce says the shift will allow thousands of businesses to reopen across the city. It says 80% of businesses would be able to work, although 50% of them will only be operating at half speed. There have been no further positive cases as yet identified in the Hauraki area, where 3 household cases were identified last night. A prisoner on remand from Mount Eden Prison was bailed to an address across the Alert Level 4 boundary in Whakatiwai. 3 household members later tested positive once the man had returned to Auckland for a court date. The entire household has now been tested. 5 others have tested negative and 1 further result is pending. Some negative results have also been returned from other contacts of the man, including prison staff, other prisoners, police officers and court staff. 350 people have been processed at Wharekawa Marae on day 1 of COVID-19 testing. The pop-up centre was established by Te Korawai Hauora of Hauraki after 3 cases emerged from a household near Kaiawa on the Firth of Thames. Kai Whakahaere of the Wharekawa Marae, Eddie Manukau, says everyone is very apprehensive.
We were thinking we were home and hose. We were going to be dropping to level 1 or something this evening. That doesn't look like the case now. So all of those anxieties that our whānau had at the beginning of this lockdown at level 4 is all come back again. So it's high anxiety at the moment.
Eddie Manukau says the marae will remain open for testing all week. A father of 3 who missed out on a managed isolation spot is frustrated there is no priority system in place for those wanting to come home permanently. At least 25,000 people tried to get one of the 3,000 managed isolation rooms made available this morning through the new lobby system. Tim Vaughan, who is in Singapore, says he was on the verge of tears when he saw his queue number pop up. His children in New Zealand are also upset.
The 8 and the 6-year-old, they understand it a little bit. Really upset, and there's plenty of crying. The 3-year-old I was talking to this morning keeps asking if I've left yet or if I'm on my way. And he doesn't understand it, and he gets really serious.
Tim Vaughan says he doesn't understand why he is treated the same as holiday makers and that athletes are given preference. Moving now into sport news. Despite signing a 2-year deal just 2 months ago, The Breakers have cut Ty Webster from their roster following his refusal to get a COVID-19 vaccine. The Breakers are again likely to start their ANBL season based in Australia due to COVID-19, and Australian authorities have confirmed interstate travel will only be possible for those fully vaccinated. The new season is due to start in mid-November. Breakers owner Matt Walsh says he respects Webster's decision, but not being vaccinated means he won't be able to travel and play with the team.
We're going to miss Ty. He was fantastic for us last year. Having said that, we're living in extraordinary times. He's made the decision. He doesn't want to get the vaccine for personal reasons, and we respect that totally. We'll keep the door open for him to return in the future. In the meantime, we're going to have to move on without him.
Auckland, counties Manukau and North Harbour have pulled out of the remainder of the Women's National Provincial Rugby competition due to their inability to train or play under COVID-19 alert levels. It means the final week of the regular season of the Farah Palmer Cup Premiership and Championship competitions will be completed with the remaining 10 teams, with the finals to be played on the first 2 weekends in October. And finally, Scott Dixon's hopes of defending his IndyCar title have been extinguished. The six-time champion could only manage 13th in the penultimate race of the season at Laguna Seca in California. He sits fourth overall, 72 points off the lead, and sadly unable to make up the difference at next week's season finale. And that's the news.
COVID-19 is in the Waikato.
It could potentially have spread quite quickly and there could be quite a large number of cases there already.
Anger from the Waikato mayor.
You don't just move people across the border because it's convenient to bail somebody to an address where he's connected to and then bring COVID with it. God, I think that's totally irresponsible.
And unwarranted anger towards the family.
The community's a little bit up in arms and giving the family a bit of grief, but hey, it's not their fault. They wouldn't have known that they've got it.
Focusing on the facts. Morning reports weekdays from 6 on RNZ National.
Te reo irirangi o Aotearoa, funded through New Zealand On Air. Now the short forecast from Met Service to midnight to Tuesday. Northland to Wellington, also Coromandel, Bay of Plenty and the Central High Country. Fine breaks with isolated light showers. Gisborne to Wairarapa, also Marlborough and Nelson. Fine apart from isolated showers for Nelson and the Marlborough Sounds tomorrow evening. Bulla will see cloud increasing with isolated showers. Rain developing later tomorrow, possibly becoming thundery. Westland will see rain spreading northwards today with isolated thunderstorms and heavy falls tomorrow. Fiordland will have periods of rain or showers, possibly becoming heavy and thundery. Canterbury will be fine to start. Norwest gales about the foothills and high country tomorrow. A few showers from tomorrow afternoon with thunderstorms about the Southern Alps. Otago and Southland mainly fine today. Rain developing early tomorrow, then turning to showers in the afternoon with possible thunderstorms for North Otago and Dunedin. And for the Chatham Islands, rain developing this afternoon, clearing later to fine spells early tomorrow morning. That concludes the short forecast from Met Service to midnight to Tuesday. You're with RNZ National. It's 7 minutes past 5.
Nā mihi Sarah, tēnā koutou katoa, no mai haere mai ki checkpoint e tēnei rā, ko Lisa Owen tēnei. The alert level elevator is heading down for some, but we're not done with Delta yet. Auckland drops to alert level 3 from midnight tomorrow night, and it will remain in those tight restrictions for at least 2 weeks. The decision will be reviewed on the 4th of October at the start of the school holidays. For the rest of the country, you're staying put, but with a bonus. Indoor gatherings will be upsized from 50 to 100 people. The outbreaks spread beyond Auckland in the last 24 hours, and an area in the Hauraki Plains will come under level 4 restrictions in an attempt to ring-fence those cases. The Prime Minister's told Aucklanders to act with caution as the restrictions loosen, and over 65s in the city who haven't had the vaccine are being told to stay home. Now, during the program tonight, we'll speak to the Deputy Chief Executive of MIQ, Megan Main, on what many say is a lottery to get home. We'll also speak to University of Auckland epidemiologist Rod Jackson on how long Auckland can expect to stay in alert level 3. But just a few minutes ago, we'll go to some voices on the street talking about the alert level changes.
It's about time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What does it change for you? Does it change much?
No, I'm an essential worker, so I'm going to work every day anyway.
Yeah. Are you getting any takeaways?
Takeaway coffee, maybe?
Pretty happy. The numbers seem pretty stable, around the 20 mark. but it is our behaviour around how we manage it, so it'll be interesting to see what lies ahead.
Oh, it's a bit iffy because we still had 20 today. So, but it sounds like I just heard on the radio that, level 3, so it's good.
Well, it's a step closer to level 2, so I'm pretty happy. It's kind of level 4 with burgers, but I don't mind, I can get out, ride, less restrictions. It's time.
Yeah. Will you be getting those burgers this week?
Maybe wait for it when it quietens down a bit, but yeah, for sure. Hey.
Will you be getting any takeaways?
Yeah, of course.
What will you be getting?
Coffees, sushi, everything.
And that was people on the streets of Auckland reacting to the news that the city will go to alert level 3 from 11:59pm tomorrow night. A testing blitz has been on in several Waikato towns today after 3 cases emerged from a household on the Hauraki Plains. The 3 are household members of a prisoner on bail who returned to Whakatiwai nearly 2 weeks ago. 2 of them go to Mangatangi School near Miranda, and one may have been infectious while there on Thursday. A steady flow of people have been through a hurriedly arranged testing centre today. Andrew McRae has been at the Wharikawa Marae on the western shore of the Firth of Thames.
The outdoor pop-up centre is being run by staff of Te Korowai Haora o Haraki. It opened at 9 this morning, and by midday, about 250 vehicles had passed through, most with a number of passengers. Chief Executive Rihanna Manuel says it's important to get as many tests done as soon as possible.
I'd say it's a good representation of the community. There'll be more, and people will come in over the time.
She says the testing centre will operate all week at the marae.
What people get is worried, genuinely worried, because in a lot of circumstances it's quite invisible. And you know, many people don't even know they've got COVID until they get those obvious symptoms, which, you know, can be mistaken for common cold and flu until things get worse. So I think people are anxious, they're worried. Obviously, it's about our young children as well.
Eddie Manukau was Kai Whakahiri of Wharikawa Marae.
There have been people coming here because they are concerned, and then there are other people that are actually being instructed by the Ministry of Health to be here. So there's a combination of those 2 communities coming together, so it's very busy today.
He says everyone's very apprehensive and a little scared by the news.
We were thinking we were home and hose. We were going to be dropping to level 1 or something this evening. That doesn't look like the case now. So all of those anxieties that our whānau had at the beginning of this lockdown at level 4 is all come back again. So it's high anxiety at the moment.
Those waiting in the queue included parents and their children who go to Mangatangi School, where 2 of the cases went and one had symptoms while there.
We were all getting COVID tested because my children, these 3 youngest, go to Mangatangi School. So, a bit of a scare with the news last night. All the relatives have been calling up or emailing us and saying, are you all right?
Being a local outbreak, so just got to come and get tested, eh?
Just being cautious, just being safe, and you?
To be safe, we live down the road, and both woken up with colds this morning and don't want to take it back to our workplace.
Children at Hauraki Plains College, close contacts with family who also attend other schools.
But at the moment you're feeling okay?
Absolutely, yes.
So it's more of just better to be safe than sorry?
Yeah, the more of us that do it, the quicker we can clamp down. It's just doing the right thing.
Rihanna Manuel from Te Korowai Haora o Haraki says the outbreak reinforces the need for people to get vaccinated.
What we are planning to set up just down the road at Mangatangi School will be a vaccination centre, and that way people can go and get their vaccination.
When will that open?
Tomorrow.
All who are tested need to self-isolate until the results are back. The Waikato DHB says COVID-19 swabs taken today will be fast-tracked and results are expected tonight.
A few minutes ago, I spoke with Deputy Prime Minister Grant Robertson and asked him what advice he could give to Aucklanders who had travel booked for the school holidays beginning on October 2nd.
Yeah, well, obviously we'll make the decision, as we've indicated in that 4th of October Cabinet. At the moment, we can't give any more certainty than what we've given today, which is that it will be alert level 2 for 3 weeks. People will be able to monitor closely what's happening, and as we do every single day, we'll be commenting and reporting against that. But this will have a long tail, and we've acknowledged that already, that the transmission within households means that we will continue to see cases for some time. But we'll endeavour to give people certainty as soon as we possibly can.
I know you won't make a decision until then, but in the past we've been at level 3 for at least 2 weeks, right? And this is Delta we're dealing with. You've indicated that it's got a long tail. So odds on, would you be advising Aucklanders don't plan on leaving the Auckland region during the school holidays?
Yeah, as you noted yourself in the question, Lisa, I'm not really in a position to answer that today. We've given Aucklanders the certainty of this 2-week period because we believe on the advice given to us by the Director General of Health that that's appropriate for this stage of the outbreak. And, I think we've just got to be aware that when you're dealing with Delta, there is a lot of uncertainty. And I'd love to just magic away all of the uncertainty, but I think we've all learned over the last 18 months that that's not possible.
Well, let me put it another way, Minister. Is there a possibility, if and when Auckland gets to level 2, that there will be some extra restrictions on travel from region to region? Is that a possibility?
That's not something we've discussed. For now, obviously you've seen we made some changes around gathering limits at level 2 initially, which we've changed today, by the way, for those outside of Auckland. But at this point, we haven't discussed anything about regional travel limits at level 2.
The prisoner who was on bail and has tested COVID positive, you've indicated that there's a tentative link with the current cluster. What is the link?
So what we're looking at is the people or person who transported the remand prisoner to their bail address, and that appears to be the link, but that's just been fully worked through now. The whole genomic sequencing is being done, but that appears to be the link.
So the family member who drove the car?
I'm not going to speculate on their relationship or anything like that, but that's the most likely line of investigation that we have.
Okay, so under alert level rules, the court is allowed to bail people across different alert levels. So when you said earlier today that it was a court decision, the court has put out a statement which indicates that it really had no other choice because alert level rules allow this. So will you look at altering that situation, that order, and maybe even just require a test for people who are being released on electronic bail?
Well, really important to note that there's absolutely no suggestion that this person had COVID when they were released from prison and put out for bail. In fact, Dr. Bloomfield's just said in the press conference that his understanding is the infectious period for the person probably started on about the 9th, which was after they left from Auckland. So there's no suggestion that they were. We've got no suggestion there was any kind of outbreak in Mount Eden, and the prisoner was there for at least 14 days beforehand.
But it's a safety net, isn't it, Minister?
In terms of your substantive question, it's not compulsory for the court to bail a person outside of an area just because it's possible. I am sure they have made that decision on the basis of safety of the community, safety of the person. So yes, it's possible for them to do that. As I said earlier today, obviously whenever any circumstance arises, we take another look at whether the rules are suitable or not. But we also have other people who are leaving MIQ and other places to go outside of an alert level 4 boundary period when they're returning to their place of residence.
So you're not going to review that order in respect of prisoners who are being bailed?
As I just said, we always look at situations as they arise, but the point being that the court makes that decision. If the court believes that the most suitable and safe place for a person is outside of that area, then that remains possible.
Yesterday, of the cases, there were 6 of them out of 24 that were not in isolation during the period they were infectious. Can you explain how that is? Because we're being told the majority of positive cases are household contacts. So aren't all of these people then supposed to be self-isolating if they're household contacts? So how is the transmission happening?
Yeah, so in some situations we're reaching quite a long way back here, and some of the people who have presented in recent days have been quite unwell, and their infectious period goes a significant way back, and then in turn for their contacts that can go a significant way back, and sometimes that can simply be the fact that the person's gone to the supermarket or a pharmacy or a laundromat, which they're totally entitled to do during alert levels.
Minister, if we can move on to MIQ, and this relates to the New Zealand cricketers who have left Pakistan. MFAT had a meeting with New Zealand cricket before they left and advised that it was a very high threat security environment in Pakistan. So should the team have gone?
Well, in the end, that is a decision for New Zealand cricket. That kind of briefing that gets given to travelling sports teams like that is a very normal occurrence when they're going to places where there might be some generic concerns. And I'm not privy to exactly what was in that briefing or how it was undertaken, but it isn't an unusual briefing. And obviously there is a reasonably high level of interest and concern about travelling to certain parts of the world that gets reflected in that. What I do know is that what we found out about on Friday was a specific and a credible threat to the team, and therefore that had to be acted on. That was not information that would have been available before they left.
Because I suppose the thing is, they make the decision ultimately, but now they're coming to, the MIQ system, wanting to be treated as an emergency when they've already got MIQ bookings. They're just a little bit further down the track. So, should they get special treatment, and if so, why?
Look, I don't know whether I'd describe it as special treatment. I think you've got a situation here where these people have been in what was a very challenging and stressful and difficult situation. They've come out through that, and they are now being able to be accommodated within some of the contingency that's available. As you yourself are noting, they had other bookings. Those bookings are now freed up, and they'll be available for other people.
But Minister, other people are in really challenging situations as well, unforeseen ones where they're stuck places. They may have dying relatives, they have family circumstances that are incredibly trying. Here is a sports team that went to a country that they knew was pretty unstable and now want to, get to the front of the queue for MIQ. Is that fair?
Well, they certainly didn't go there knowing that there was a specific and targeted threat against them. So that's the first thing. Secondly, there is a contingency in place for this kind of circumstances, but equally there is the ability for people who do have dying relatives to be able to apply for emergency access as well. So that's possible for those people too.
James Shaw is apparently taking 9 people from New Zealand with him over to Glasgow. Are they getting MIQ spots too? Are they signed and sealed?
I don't have that information, Lisa. I would presume when a government delegation is organised that will have been worked through, but I couldn't tell you the answer to that.
Does 9 seem a lot in this current climate? And that's 9 from New Zealand. There's others in the contingent who are based overseas. But 9 probably seems a lot to people who are desperately trying to get a spot via the lobby at MIQ.
Yeah, look, and I don't have any information as to whether it is 9 or it isn't 9. I do know, having been to a lot of international meetings in my former life as a diplomat before as a politician, that delegations are normally significantly larger than that, but obviously in these times it will be kept to a minimum. Again, from time to time, and it's been very rare, we've had government officials go overseas because we do need to continue that work. It's a very, very, very small fraction of the number of rooms that are available in MIQ.
And that was the Deputy Prime Minister Grant Robertson. It is almost 23 minutes past 5 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. Kia ora ra watu mo te whakarongo mai e haere ake nei. Coming up, we'll talk to the boss of MIQ about how the wait in the lobby went this morning. Auckland will move to alert level 3 from tomorrow night and will stay there for at least 2 weeks. There were 22 new cases today, but health authorities say most new cases are linked to households. Our reporter Louise Tanuth joins us now from Onehunga. Louise, how's the news going down there?
Hi Lisa, well there's a lot of happy people here in Tāmaki Makaurau this afternoon, as well as having the sun. They've got level 3. Many people that we've spoken to are really hanging out for their takeaway fix that they haven't had in level 4, perhaps looking forward to seeing a relative that's been isolated and they haven't been able to catch up with in person. And for some people they will be going back to work in some shape or form, so the news has gone down extremely well.
The police, though, have caught some people, Louise, on the southern border, right? And we're being told that we need to stay the course and stick to the rules. So what can you tell us about the breaches?
Yeah, so yesterday police arrested 2 gang associates who were trying to come in from Waikato into Tamaki Makaurau. Now, they were coming in with a carload full of KFC and $100,000 in cash. They were stopped and arrested, and they'll appear in court at a later date. But yes, it is a reminder from police for people to obey those rules. They're there for a reason. And if people are travelling in and out of those checkpoints, there's no loophole and it's not an opportunity to bend the rules.
Thanks, Louise. Louise Tenuth joining us live there from Auckland. Parts of the Hauraki Plains have effectively been ring-fenced and placed into Alert Level 4 for at least 5 days. It takes in an area near Miranda where there are 3 new COVID cases, including a prisoner who travelled out of Level 4 into a Level 3 area as part of his bail conditions, actually into a Level 2 area as part of his bail conditions. Police inside the ring-fenced area, people inside the ring-fenced area must stay at home and monitor for symptoms for the next 5 days and can only go for food or medical treatment following a new health order. The Waikato District Mayor is Allan Sanson, who joins me now. Hi, Allan. What do you make of this decision to kind of, annex part of your region and keep it in a level 4 situation?
Well, this is about keeping everybody safe, isn't it, Lisa? And I think it's probably the only option the government actually had was to ring-fence those communities and try and make things as safe as possible for them and for other people as well.
Is it disappointing it has come to this? I know you were going to talk to the Prime Minister about the decision to bail this person into the district. Did you have that conversation?
Look, I haven't spoken to the Prime Minister. I do speak with her office, dare I say it, these days, nearly every day. So the people that are dealing with the strategy around how we deal with these issues in the DPMC's office, my first conversation first thing this morning was how disappointed I was and how this has actually happened in relation to a remand prisoner has been bailed to a location in the Waikato, effectively in Kaiawa, but more importantly, I understand also that there was also 2 addresses, one in Auckland and one at Kaiawa. So why wasn't he kept at the one in Auckland, I suppose? I'd have to ask corrections. Can you explain that to us, Allan? What do you mean? Well, I just actually listened to somebody on another channel who was acting for the Department of Corrections and made the comment around this person's bail notice had 2 addresses, one in Auckland and one outside Auckland, and they chose to come to the one outside Auckland, bringing him from a Level 4 area into a Level 2 area. The courts have told us that there's nothing in the COVID alert orders that prevent bailing someone between different alert levels, right? Do you think at the very least, and this is something the government could look at, the order, the alert level order, would you like to see some kind of requirement for a negative test? Yeah, look, despite what's in the order, I think there should be some requirement. There is now for anybody going across the border to have a COVID test. But I thought the Department of Corrections would have applied a bit of common sense as well, knowing that they would potentially go across the border, considering they had an address to do that. I just can't understand the rationale in that at all in any way. It just shows that some people seem to think it's all right, but if it's not in the order, it's all right. We can just move freely across the border. I've never heard so much rubbish in all my life. Allan, we've heard some people in the community raising questions about the position of this property, and without giving away specifics, is it right on the cusp of a Level 4, Level 2 split? Because some people are saying part of the road potentially is in one district and the other part in the other. Yeah, look, at what it is the Waikato district goes through Mangatangi and down through Miranda and touches onto the Firth of Thames at Kaiawa. But there is that's the Waikato district boundary, and on either side of that there's the main part of Hauraki, and then of course there's what I call the enclave of Kaiawa as a village, which is also in Hauraki district. So there is a border that they cross between Waikato to travel between those 2 parts of Hauraki. I know it sounds confusing, but that's just the way it was set up many years ago. Allan, can you tell us whether the house is in one alert level and the school is actually in another? Yeah, definitely. So my understanding is the house with the whānau in question is in Hauraki, and the school itself where the children attend and the community is at Mangatangi.
So is the school in alert level 2 and the house at a higher level?
No, they're all in the same alert level together.
Okay.
So the boundary that's been drawn has used territorial authority boundaries. So you follow the outer boundary of the Waikato district in Hauraki, takes it right through off State Highway 2 and overland and down through onto the coast at the intersection of Miranda and East Coast Road.
Appreciate your time, Allan. That's Allan Sanson, the Waikato District Mayor. Kiwi expats trying to book a coveted spot in MIQ are still rolling the dice, just under a different system. A new MIQ voucher system made its debut today, allocating more than 3,000 rooms through randomised virtual lobby lottery. The revamped booking system is supposed to be fairer, but as our political reporter Annika Smith reports, there were tears of both happiness and heartbreak today.
Okay. Get into Auckland on the 18th of November. Holy shit, I've got a date. Oh, God.
Tears of relief and joy as Annette McCainch secured a spot in the first batch of new MIQ spots. Working in the tech sector in Vietnam, she's been trying to get home since June.
We finally got the 18th of November and I'm still keep bursting into tears, so I'm coming home.
Annette managed to secure one of around 3,200 rooms released this morning. It's the first lot of rolling fortnightly MIQ voucher releases since they were paused to free up MIQ capacity in the Delta outbreak. Anyone logged into the virtual lobby between 8 and 9 o'clock this morning had an equal chance of securing a room, and it was a chock-a-block waiting room. Around 25,000 people were in today's queue, among them Alistair and his 2 children in Spain. Alistair's daughter entered the lobby to find she was second in line to get a spot for the family.
Yeah, I couldn't believe it. So that was the first laptop. I essentially had 2 laptops and my phone altogether. And I said, there's one person in front of my daughter in the queue. I was just like, I couldn't believe it, really. And I looked over to my laptop, and my laptop said there's 22,500 people in front of me in the queue.
The highs experienced by those who managed to get an MIQ spot today are in stark contrast to those who missed out yet again. Tim Vaughan has been trying to get back home to his wife and 3 children from Singapore for months. He was about 16,000th in the queue this morning and only got down to 12,000th by the time all the spots had been allocated.
It's really hard to put into words, to be honest. I was on the verge of tears when I saw my queue number pop up.
How old are your 3 children? What do you tell them when you don't have a date? You just say, well, Dad can't come home right now.
The 8 and the 6-year-old, they understand it a little bit, and they are really upset, and there's plenty of crying. The 3-year-old I was talking to this morning keeps asking if I've left yet or if I'm on my way.
The new MIQ voucher system replaces the old first-in, first-served model, taking out the stress of having to hover over screens and refresh web pages. But Tim says if it's not needs-based, it's not fair.
I can't comprehend how sports teams, government officials, people that are going to conferences, they're getting priority. It beggars belief, really.
The National Party has proposed a points-based system that would consider the reasons people had for travelling home. But the COVID-19 Response Minister, Chris Hipkins, said this would be highly complex and too resource-intensive. Even those who managed to get a spot today, like Alistair, say this isn't fair.
Citizens should always have the right to be able to return back to their country. I think that's why I think it's unfair. And reading some of the stories and people's situations that they're in, they've taken a lot of the empathy out of people's situations, really.
Those expats who missed out this time round will have to bide their time and try again when the next tranche of spots open up. Around 4,000 MIQ vouchers are due to be released every fortnight between now and Christmas.
Homai o whakaaro, love your feedback on that one. Were you in the lobby? How did it go for you? What do you think of the new system? Patui mai, text me on 2101, tweet us at Checkpoint RNZ, or you can send us an email, checkpoint@rnz.co.nz. Kia ora e te iwi e haere ake nei I a Checkpoint. When's the next chance to bags a room in MIQ? The Deputy Chief is with us live. Judges hesitant to up sticks and move town. And the Silver Ferns take to the court with all their players but with no fans. It is time now for the headlines. Ko Sarah Anō tēnei.
Kia ora Lisa. RNZ News headlines. Ko Sarah Thompson tōku ingoa. The Deputy Prime Minister says it cannot give any more certainty for Aucklanders about school holidays next month, despite COVID restrictions being reduced in the region from tomorrow. The government announced within the last hour that Auckland will drop to level 3 from 11:59pm tomorrow night. It will remain in place for 2 weeks. The Deputy Prime Minister, Grant Robertson, told Checkpoint there was no certainty with the Delta variant, which had a long tail, and that's why the government cannot make any firm decisions beyond October 4th. Mr Robertson also says that economic and social factors were major determinants in this afternoon's consideration by Cabinet. The mayor of a rural Waikato district says he is disappointed a COVID-positive prisoner was bailed to his region and effectively forced it into a de facto level 4 lockdown. 3 new COVID cases were confirmed in the Firth of Thames over the weekend. All 3 were linked to a prisoner who was on remand in the area and tested positive for COVID when he returned to Auckland for his court appearance last week. The Waikato district mayor, Allan Sanson, has told the program he spoke to the Prime Minister's office today and said he told them he was disappointed the prisoner had left Auckland to be bailed in his region. Meanwhile, the Auckland Chamber of Commerce has welcomed the shift down alert levels, which will allow thousands of businesses to reopen across the city. It says 80% of businesses would be able to work, although 50% of them will only be operating at half speed. The Restaurant Association also says it offers a glimmer of hope for the embattled industry, but it still wants the government to consider targeted financial relief. And finally, the new managed isolation booking system has created frustration for thousands of people desperately trying to return to New Zealand. At least 25,000 people tried to get one of the 3,000 managed isolation rooms made available this morning through the new lobby system. Those are your headlines. Our next news and sport update is at 6.
Nā mihi Sarah, no mai hoki mai. This is Checkpoint, ko Lisa Owen tēnei. The lobby was very crowded this morning with at least 25,000 people waiting with their fingers crossed for a spot in MIQ. 3,000 rooms were released this morning under the new system, which randomly allocates each person a position in the queue. For the more than 22,000 who didn't get a spot, they can have another shot in a couple of weeks' time. Well, joining me now is Deputy Chief Executive of MIQ, Megan Main. Kia ora, Megan. How do you reckon it went?
Kia ora, Lisa. Look, the release today went smoothly, technically. We had 5,300 people from 117 countries who were able to get vouchers in those 3,200 rooms that we released. And, you know, I know, so it was good for those people, but I know there are thousands of people who missed out in today's release. And I really want to reassure people that we've still got several thousand vouchers to release through to the end of the year. And we're planning another large release of a few thousand vouchers early next week. And also, it's also worth noting that people have got 48 hours from this morning's release to lock in their flights and finalise their vouchers. So on Wednesday afternoon, we'll have a look to see how many vouchers haven't been confirmed and can be re-released, and we might be able to do a smaller, more targeted release towards the end of the week. The main thing is that, you know, technically the lobby did what we hoped it would, and so that means we can keep using it in the future.
Right, there's a lot in that, Megan, so I just want to go through a few things with you. So we've spoken to a modeller who thinks that there were potentially, people in the 6 figures who were waiting. It's just that they went in and out of the lobby. Do you have any idea of what the total pool of people was wanting to get a voucher here?
Yeah, so there are 25,000 who were in the lobby just before 9 a.m. And what we saw is at its peak after 9 a.m. it got to 31,800. So anyone who joined after 9 a.m. went to the back of the queue.
Right. So is this the first time that you can actually quantify the excess demand, if you like?
It certainly gives us a good feel for the excess demand. What we don't know is how many people were in the queue who were trying to understand the queue or looking to see how it worked. But previously we have been able to see how many people are on the website in any given day. But this gives us, a point in time bit of data that we didn't have previously.
When you say you've got several thousand vouchers to release before the end of the year, how many is that?
Oh, look, it varies depending on what else happens. What we've seen is we had to pause vouchers for a few weeks while we dealt with the outbreak up in Auckland. But in excess of 6,000 vouchers based on our current planning, assuming that, we don't have to make any major changes to our plans. And it could be
Sorry,
more.
Megan, you just dropped out a little bit there.
In reserve.
Sorry, Megan, I just couldn't catch you then. How many did you say? What was the number?
Yeah, around 6,000 or 7,000 at least.
Okay.
Up until the end of December.
So when you say you're going to release 3,000 a fortnight, will you split those across October, November, December equally, like with 1,000 spots in each of those months, or how are you going to do it?
So we're planning on doing another quite large release early next week of around about 3,000 vouchers, similar to today. And then we'll do regular releases of both new vouchers and re-released vouchers. At the moment, most of the vouchers for October are gone. There is a small amount left and some re-release. So the next release will be more focused on November and some more of December. And we're working with the airlines so that soon we'll be able to go into the 2022 months as well.
So when you say only a few left for October, can you give us a bit of a figure?
Lisa, I don't have that to hand. And as I
But are you talking like hundreds of spots?
Look, as we've seen, people's plans change. Vouchers get re-released into the system as those plans change. So we've seen, that at any one time there'll be, up to 100 vouchers being re-released every few days. So we expect that to continue because travel is still really disrupted around the world. It's not easy getting to New Zealand at the moment, unfortunately.
Yeah, and I suppose that's what it does definitively show us is that demand really outstrips supply. Now, before Delta, the COVID minister suggested there could be a slight increase in capacity. Is that going to happen? How much more can you squeeze out of the system?
Well, you're right. The lobby system is to help the user experience. But when we do have more people looking to get vouchers than we have available, then unfortunately people are going to miss out. So we want as many people as possible to get back to New Zealand. But you're right, there isn't an unlimited number of MIQ rooms, and it's not just the hotels. You'll be aware that we are looking at feasibility of standing up 2 or 3 more facilities in the near term. But it's not just finding hotels that are suitable with suitable ventilation. It's the workforce, the health workforce, the security workforce, the defence workforce, and also importantly, it's access to health system capacity if things are needed there, and also access to major transport hubs. So there's a lot of factors to take into account.
People will be listening with interest. What is the time frame to stand those extra 2 or 3 facilities up?
Yeah, well, we're still working through the feasibility of actually finding facilities that meet the technical boxes. And, of course, there's also, community support and just working through all those factors. But, we're working as fast as we can to come down to whether we've got options.
Is Oahakia Airbase a contender?
There has been a range of suggestions put forward. And ultimately, that's a decision for government based on the public health, the scientific, the technical advice.
But is it part of your feasibility study, Megan? Is that one of the options that you're looking at?
It's not on my short list right now, Lisa.
Okay. Hey, do you want to tell us what are the facilities on your short list, Megan?
No, not right now, Lisa. As I say, we're still working through. There's a lot of factors to consider around whether something's going to be suitable.
Appreciate that. Just before you go, can you tell us how many emergency allocations you've made in the last month and how many on average you're making a month, emergency allocations?
So since we went live with the emergency allocation process in, I think, November last year, there's been about 3,000 emergency allocations approved. We've got, up to 700 places set aside every month and a bit for emergency allocations.
But how many are you giving out is what I want to know. How many are you approving on average in any given month? How many spots do you give out, and particularly since we've had Delta?
It varies from month to month, Lisa. When we had excess capacity, we weren't approving any emergency allocations because everyone who needed a voucher could get one through NEAS. And so, I'm one of the decision makers who approve these vouchers, and there are days where we might consider 75 or 100 and other days where there might only be a handful.
Appreciate your time this evening. That's Megan Main, who's the Deputy Chief Executive of MIQ. It is time now for business. Ko taku hoa anai nei, ko Nona Peltier, who's here to talk all things business. What's this about the pet food industry, Nona? It's going gangbusters at the moment.
Well, it would seem so. Our pet food is in big demand. And we had recently, back in May, there was a company called KKR that bought a Christchurch-based pet food company called Natural Pet Food for an undisclosed sum. And then Scales, which is also known as an Apple company, also recently did very well with their pet food division, and it reported strong growth for that in the past year. And now today, a company called Fountain Vest Partners, which is Chinese investors, are going to buy Ziwi Peak for an undisclosed price. Now, while it's undisclosed, the speculation is it's about $1.5 billion is what the purchase price has been. We can't confirm that, but in any case, the money that is going that way is going to be used to help expand the business within New Zealand. It's going to retain staff, and they're going to look at building another factory in Napier. That company has got sales of something like $50 million a year, and the Pet Food Industry Association, yes, there is one. They think that the industry itself is worth about $150 billion a year, and that local sales were about $500 million in the last year. So there you go. It's one of those things that we do well, apparently.
And Nona, ongoing lockdown is behind a significant drop in the services sector. Not unexpected, but what do the numbers show?
It's pretty dismal, really. In July, we had expansion. So anything above 50 indicates expansion. So in July, we had 55.9. In August, we had 35.6, and that's a 20.3 point fall. That's huge. Now, it's not as bad as it was when we went through our first lockdown back in 2020, but it's still pretty bad. I mean, it's affected the sales activity, of course, deliveries, new orders, stock inventories, and so on. What else would you expect? However, the employment has held up relatively well at 49.2. So not in expansion, but really not deeply negative either. And with these lockdown restrictions lifting in Auckland, hopefully that's going to help the sector. Certainly we should start to see more of the services sector opening up. Not all of them, of course, but never mind. It's better than completely closed.
And what numbers have you got for us from the market today?
Look, our market was a little bit weaker. We fell 0.4%, but that's because Hong Kong, for example, had a really deep slide. The Chinese markets were closed, but there's real concern there about some of the Chinese economic numbers. And so 0.4% fall, 56 points to 13,179, not too bad compared with, say, a 4% fall in Hong Kong. New Zealand dollar, it's trading at 70.2 US cents, 97.1 Australian, and 51.2 pence.
Thanks, Nona. It is 13 minutes to 6. I'm Lisa Owen, and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. He Muriaki ina pita pita kōrero. After the news at 6, the Silver Ferns hit the court. We'll go there live. Some businesses on Tamaki Makaurau's northern border say things are so quiet they fear they may go extinct and desperately want a travel corridor to keep them moving. Travel through to Northland is still highly restricted. Anyone anyone driving through Auckland must provide proof their trip is for an essential reason. Now, that's putting massive strain on border towns, where some shops are desperately hoping some visitors will be able to return for the school holidays. Nei te kairipoata, Nita Blake person.
Heavy trucks make up most of the vehicles in the short queue at the Te Hana checkpoint today. The usual visitor traffic has ground to a halt. There's a no papers, no pass policy here, and business in nearby Kaiwaka has been feeling the strain.
Business has been a bit different since lockdown.
Kylie Katu is the cook and barrister at Utopia Cafe in Kaiwaka. A lot of their customers would usually be travellers stopping on a trip north or south. Locals are keeping things ticking along at the moment, but only just.
We open at 8:30 in the morning and we get a rush from there right through to about 3. At the moment we're getting 1 or 2 locals coming in, but we're not really getting many other people after that. So we're kind of like really slow, and you can notice the difference.
She says it's just the way things are at the moment, but is hopeful that a boost in vaccinations will make a big change going forward.
We do have that 1 or 2 people that come in complaining about vaccinations, but people will have their offside and people will have their upside. So, yeah, I mean, we're just trying to convince everyone to be vaccinated, just to make life a bit easier and a bit more enjoyable for us beautiful Kiwis.
For Beth Stone, business is pretty dire.
My partner and I have a holiday park near Kaiwaka, which is quiet to the point of extinction at the moment.
Auckland's lockdown is putting huge pressure on their business.
This time of year we would normally have lots of travellers flocking in who work at local tree nurseries and so on. Instead, the very few that are left in New Zealand are leaving because they've been here 2 years and they're getting homesick. And we would normally be full, have bookings to be full for the school holidays coming up, and we haven't got one single booking.
But she does have some hope. A travel corridor for anyone visiting the north from Waikato south for non-essential travel could be a much-needed boost.
That would be really helpful because a lot of our guests are beyond Auckland. I mean, we've had cancellations from people in the South Island. So.
Mangawhai is also on the edge of the Northland-Auckland divide. Gareth Wilson owns the cafe Brewed As Collective there and says most visitors arrive by car and a travel corridor is desperately needed.
We are a holiday town, and although the local population is growing, when Auckland's in lockdown, we get cut off from the rest of New Zealand. So that makes it really hard. It kind of feels like we're still in 3 or maybe even 4, just because we rely heavily on that weekend trade, especially with like school holidays and things coming up. Like people want to come to the winterless north, and if it's cut off by Auckland, it makes it very difficult for them to do that.
While Tamaki Makaurau is in level 3 for at least another 2 weeks, the border with Northland will remain in place. And for staff there, like Grace Legros, who is working on behalf of Te Runanga or Ngāti Whātua, the number one objective is keeping COVID out of Te Tai Tokoro. She says a drop in alert levels won't change much for them, but staff will be keeping a very close eye on who's coming and going.
Probably just up the ante a little bit to be more diligent about who's coming from the south into the north. And for me, that would give me and the iwi peace of mind that we've done our very best to keep our people in the north safe.
And looking forward to a day they can welcome everyone back.
The tentacles of the housing crisis now creeping their way into the justice sector. Fewer new judges are willing to move towns after being appointed to the bench, a convention set up to reduce any potential conflicts of interest or risk of bias if they preside over cases that they're familiar with. It's being suggested that housing affordability, even on a judge's salary, could be to blame for the shift. But the Chief Justice says there are other reasons for the trend. Here's investigative reporter Anusha Bradley.
In July, a man's bid to have Auckland District Court Judge Kirsten Lummis removed from his trial was declined by the High Court. He argued there could be bias given the judge had signed his Crown prosecution notice and been the trial prosecutor's supervisor in her previous role as a Crown prosecutor. But she saw no reason to recuse herself, and the High Court agreed. In his decision, Justice Lang says Crown solicitors are often appointed judges, and it's not uncommon, especially in metropolitan areas, for them to preside over cases which they once may have prosecuted. He says judges also take an oath to discharge their duties in an impartial way. The man's lawyer, Marie Taylor-Cyphers, disagrees and is now taking the case to the Court of Appeal. She fears it's going to increasingly become an issue as more judges are choosing to stay put.
We used to have this practice where we appointed judges to sit outside of their hometown for at least the first couple of years to avoid this very issue. Then you'd never get a judge sitting, firstly, against lawyers that they used to practice beside and know really well.
It comes as the lack of diversity on the bench is in the spotlight, with RNZ revealing 91% of High Court judges are Pākehā and most are men. Official figures show more senior court judges were civil or corporate lawyers or work for the Crown before their appointment. Barrister Nick Chisnell says the trend for new judges to remain in their hometown increases the risk they may have to recuse themselves from a case because of the potential conflict of interest.
In recent times, we've seen a number of, in particular, both defence and Crown prosecutors, and we're talking about the District Court here, appointed to the bench, and in fact the High Court too, where they've got former colleagues appearing in front of them. And that's probably a natural reflection of how small New Zealand is. But in the old days, and I'm not going back that long, the expectation was that you'd go and sit elsewhere initially until you didn't have any direct influence or any direct knowledge of cases.
Ms Taylor-Cyphers says anecdotally, high house prices appear to be one of the reasons why new judges are reluctant to move.
Even on a judge's salary, there's a reticence to appoint people from out of Auckland to come and sit in Auckland, and people that sit in Auckland would want to preserve their house and everything else. And logically, that all makes a lot of sense, but it really does throw up these difficulties where you're going to come across, particularly as a prosecutor, files that you've worked on.
The Chief Justice, Helen Winkelman, says she's not aware of high house prices contributing to the trend, saying it's simply not as essential for judges to move as it has been in the past.
There used to be a concern that you would move. It was really only, I should say, I think that was only a practice in the District Court. It was never a practice in the Senior Court. You would move judges away from their region so they weren't exposed to people they knew, their neighbours, etc., coming into court. Now with the growth of it, with our cities and even our larger townships, that's not really such a factor. I think there's also a reflection of the fact that actually networks are important for judges too, and we're asking them to take on a really stressful job. And we're asking them to, at the same time, simultaneously uproot themselves from all their existing support networks. So we have to be mindful of that.
Justice Winkelman says all judges receive unconscious bias training and work is underway to recruit more judges from different backgrounds.
A refusal to get the COVID-19 vaccination has cost basketball player Ty Webster his spot on the New Zealand Breakers roster for the upcoming Australian National Basketball League season. The club announced today they'd parted ways with the 26-year-old by mutual consent. Felicity Reid has more.
The point guard's stance on the COVID-19 jab made Ty Webster's place on the team he was signed to for the next 2 seasons untenable, according to New Zealand Breakers Chief Executive and owner Matt Walsh.
We're living in extraordinary times. He's made the decision that he doesn't want to get the vaccine for personal reasons, and we respect that totally. We'll keep the door open for him to return in the future, and in the meantime, we're going to have to move on without him.
Webster's older brother Corey had also left the club by mutual consent earlier this year to play in Egypt. Corey had spoken out on social media about his stance on vaccinations and his desire to know more about the vaccine. Walsh says it's not club policy for players to be vaccinated, but they are following the lead of the government on both sides of the Tasman. The NBL has teams based in most states, and Victorian Premier Daniel Andrews has ruled out interstate travel until vaccination levels reach 80%, with the state on track for 70% by October 26th. Walsh says this impacts on the Breakers.
I don't think that the NBL or the club is going to have to take a stance because I think it's going to be pretty cut and dry. From what we're hearing, there's going to be very little travel permitted and sport permitted to be played for people who are unvaccinated. So at the end of the day, I'm a big believer in people's freedom of choice. Our guys are going to have to decide, this is their livelihood. If they want to play professional basketball, you're going to have to be vaccinated. Unless there's, a major health issue, I think that's what's probably going to play out because I think the governments are going to dictate that you're going to need to be vaccinated for freedom of travel. And I don't think we're going to have to set anything a hard line, because I think it's going to be done by the government.
The NBL has been delayed by 1 month to start November 18th, a decision league organisers made to try and get more fans in the stands. The 10-team competition is already dealing with cases of COVID-19 among the playing ranks. A Sydney Kings player tested positive for the virus 2 weeks ago, which shut down the club's pre-season training, while all players and staff self-isolated. Further cases were identified within the club in the past week. Other basketball leagues around the world are also grappling with vaccinating players. The rules released by the high-profile NBA could cause division between players in the American competition who are vaccinated and those who aren't. Players for the New York Knicks, Brooklyn Nets and Golden State Warriors will all be required to be fully vaccinated to play in home games, in accordance with New York City and San Francisco's vaccine mandate. All NBA teams will likely have to arrange seating during travel, meals, meetings and in locker rooms to ensure that players who are not fully vaccinated are not seated directly next to another player. According to reports, approximately 85% of the players in the 30-team NBA are fully vaccinated.
So much feedback from you all on MIQ and who should get spots and who shouldn't. This person says going through a ballot system is degrading and demoralising. New Zealanders have a right to return to home to live. Total discrimination. New Zealand government needs to build purpose-built MIQ rooms, as this is not going away. Another person says your interview with Grant Robertson shows that not all New Zealanders are created equal when it comes to MIQ spots. Cricketers and other sports people and politicians take precedence. 9 people travelling with James Shaw is obscene when their decisions for others are inhumane. What hypocrisy from the Greens and the government, says Debbie. Another listener says it should be a lottery, with over 25,000 wanting to return and only a few thousand MIQ places. It is the fairest way. Another person says, Kiwis leaving Pakistan, what a bunch of spoilt, entitled upstarts who expect to be treated like little princes. They should not be allowed preferential treatment and early access to MIQ. Anyone with half a brain realised that touring Pakistan was just too risky. And this, we'll save that one till after 6.
Ahia Himari, RNZ News at 6, ko Sarah Thompson tōku ingoa. The Prime Minister is summing up Auckland's move to level 3 on Wednesday with one word: caution. The rest of the country will stay at alert level 2, with gathering limits increased from 50 to 100. Jacinda Ardern says level 4 has helped contain the virus, but level 3 keeps the rules that help keep up that important work.
Your bubbles remain. You are not allowed to visit friends or neighbours at level 3. You shouldn't join them for food, talk closely across the fence, or even have children play together. I know this is strict and it is hard, but it is there for a reason.
Jacinda Ardern has also told those over the age of 65 who are not yet vaccinated to stay home. Part of the northern Waikato has been put in a bespoke lockdown, legally requiring anyone who lives or works there to stay at home. The Director General of Health has issued a Section 70 notice which covers an area north of State Highway 2 around Mangatangi. Dr Ashley Bloomfield says anyone who lives, works or has visited the area since the 8th of September must now stay home and monitor for symptoms.
It's initially for 5 days. It could be shorter. So it's 5 days, or until a medical officer of health says that people can be released. That we think will give us a good amount of time, and we can adjust it as well. That's a good thing about a Section 70 notice. We can just adjust it as we go if there is new information that emerges.
The new measures come after an Auckland prisoner bailed to an address in Waikato later tested positive for COVID-19. 3 people at the address have also tested positive. The Waikato District Mayor says he is disappointed the prisoner was bailed to an address in the region when one in Auckland was available. Allan Sanson has told Checkpoint he informed the Department of the Prime Minister and Cabinet this morning how disappointed he was in the decision. He says corrections should have applied common sense as well, knowing that the man would potentially go across the alert level border. The man is believed to have picked up COVID-19 from someone who drove him home from prison. A small rural school on the Firth of Thames has closed its doors today due to the proximity of 3 COVID cases 10 minutes down the road. The 27-pupil Kaiawa School is not far from Mangatangi School, where a COVID-positive pupil attended last week. The principal, Carlos Bosson, and the board decided to close even before getting government advice to do so. He says there is some overlap in the school communities, including at local shops.
There's the pink shop, there's the gas station in the village that people do stop at and frequent. So, there's a lot of interaction just in those two businesses and, it's just going to increase the risk level.
Mangatangi School was also closed today. Air New Zealand's quarantine flights for people wanting to get home to Australia sold out within 3 minutes of going on sale. The airline says it was allocated a very limited number of managed isolation spaces to get people back across the Tasman. It says because of the constraints in Australia, it was allowed a total of 385 seats to Perth, Brisbane and Melbourne up until the end of October. On some flights, as few as 10 seats were available. Air New Zealand says it's in constant contact with the Australian government about whether any additional allocations will be made available. A leading local pet food maker and exporter has been sold to a Chinese investment fund. Ziwi Peak has been sold to Fountainvest Partners for an undisclosed sum, although market speculation is a price of more than $1 billion. Ziwi's managing director, Richard Lawrence, says the funds will be used to expand the company, which will keep its current staff, management and production in this country. Bidding for Ziwi Peak was said to be keen, with several private equity funds and global food group Nestlé all said to be interested. Earlier this year, the Christchurch-based natural pet food company was bought by a US investment fund. The driver of a vehicle that crashed in New Plymouth earlier this month after fleeing police has died in hospital. 21-year-old Justice Grace of Waitara died in Waikato Hospital on Sunday. At 1:30am on September 9th, the car drove off at speed after police had signalled for it to stop. Police activated their sirens and lights but did not pursue the vehicle because of the manner it was being driven. A short time later, the car was found crashed at Northgate, about 1.5 kilometres away. The circumstances of the crash are still being investigated and the Independent Police Conduct Authority has been notified. Moving now into sports news, the Silver Ferns shooter Maya Wilson knows she needs to take on greater responsibility in tonight's opening netball test against England in Christchurch. Wilson is the senior player in the shooting circle following the retirement of Maria Folau and the absence of captain Emilian Ekenasio. However, the Northern Stars shooter has had a rollercoaster season and she suffered a slump midway through the ANZ Premiership. She has also been battling with mental health issues around body image.
Yeah, I'm definitely someone in the shooting circle who has to stand up a bit more now, which is 100% fine. I'm glad that I have the likes of Te Pae Sabi-Rickett, who has been in the environment for just as long as I have, and I have worked alongside the likes of Jamie Hume and Tiana Metuaro before, so it's going to be very exciting. Who knows what's going to happen?
The refusal of Breakers guard Ty Webster to get a COVID-19 vaccination has seen him and the club part ways just 2 months after he signed a new 2-year contract. The Breakers are likely to again start their ANBL season based in Australia, and interstate travel will only be possible for those who are fully vaccinated. The new season is due to start in mid-November, and Breakers owner Matt Walsh says while he respects Webster's decision, not being vaccinated means he won't be able to travel or play with the team. Auckland, Counties Manukau and North Harbour have pulled out of the remainder of their women's national provincial rugby competition due to their inability to train or play under COVID-19 alert levels. And that's the news.
Tonight on Nights, Zoe George is this week's sportscaster. And yes, there was sport over the weekend. We've got Maoni McCleary from Auckland's Going West Festival, which is now 25 years old, and to celebrate, has published a collection of essays from a host of West Side speakers from over the quarter century. And there's a new series on the electric guitar and how it conquered the musical world on Nights with me, Brian Crump, after the news at 7 on RNZ National.
Te reo irirangi o Aotearoa, on air, online and on demand. Now the short forecast from Met Service to midnight rā to Tuesday. Northland to Wellington, also Coromandel, Bay of Plenty and the Central High Country. Fine breaks and isolated light showers. Gisborne to Wairarapa, also Marlborough and Nelson. Fine apart from isolated showers for Nelson and the Marlborough Sounds tomorrow evening. Bulla will see cloud increasing with isolated showers. Rain develops later tomorrow and possibly becomes thundery. Westland will see rain spreading northwards tonight with isolated thunderstorms and heavy falls tomorrow. Fiordland will see periods of rain or showers, possibly becoming heavy and thundery. Canterbury will be fine to start. Northwest gales about the foothills and high country tomorrow. A few showers from tomorrow afternoon and thunderstorms about the Southern Alps. Otago and Southland will be mainly fine tonight. Rain developing early tomorrow, then turning to showers in the afternoon with possible thunderstorms for North Otago and Dunedin. And for the Chatham Islands, rain will develop tonight, then clears to fine spells early tomorrow morning. That concludes the short forecast from mid-service to midnight to Tuesday. It's 8 minutes past 6.
Kia ora rā e hono mai hoki mai. If you're just joining us, this is Checkpoint. Ko Lisa Owen tēnei. Dear Auckland, fakeaways are nearly gone. Takeaways are back on the menu. There's some good news for the city tonight. After 34 days in lockdown, Tamaki Makaurau will move to Alert Level 3 at midnight tomorrow. It will remain there for at least 2 weeks. The rest of the country will stay at Alert Level 2 with gathering limits increased from 50 to 100. Te Peremia Jacinda Ardern made the announcement at Parliament on advice from the Director-General of Health.
That advice explicitly stated that Level 4 has done what we needed it to do. It has helped us contain the outbreak. And now as we continue our zero-tolerance approach to cases, Level 3 still provides the really important and strict rules that help us keep up that important work.
A warning though, Level 3 does not mean freedom.
I can sum it up with one word: caution. You will have heard me say that when analysing where transmission has occurred, there are some strong themes and reasons why certain rules remain in place. They stop transmission at Level 4 and are still in place at Level 3. First, your bubbles remain. You are not allowed to visit friends or neighbours at Level 3. You shouldn't join them for food, talk closely across the fence, or even have children play together. I know this is strict and it is hard, but it is there for a reason.
But there is a special appeal to those in Auckland who are over 65.
If you have not yet been vaccinated, please stay at home until you have been. This will give you an extra layer of protection in this outbreak. We have been doing direct outreach to all our over 65s who haven't had their first dose yet in Auckland. That amounts to about 23,000 people. The vast majority of over 65s have been vaccinated, but for the smaller group, we really do want to encourage you to take that next step.
Wearing masks at high school will be mandatory under Auckland's Alert Level 3, although they'll still only be open for the children of essential workers. The rest of the country will stay at Level 2 for a further 2 weeks, but with some loosening of the rules, with gathering limits increased to 100, including for the hospitality sector. Cabinet will review these settings on Monday, October the 4th, the first day of the school holidays. University of Auckland epidemiologist Rod Jackson joins me now. Hi Rod, does the decision make sense to you?
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. I've been wavering over the last few days, but at 3 o'clock this afternoon, when I knew I was going to be in the media responding, I had to come down on what would I do, and I came down on a Level 3. I think it's the right decision because both Level 3 and Level 4 are designed to stamp out the virus, and the difference, as everyone has been discussing, is it's takeaways and some more people out working. So it's good for our psyche and it's good for the economy, but it's still very much focused on stamping out the virus.
Well, should we put that decision to the test then and just look some of the numbers that we've got, right? Five of today's cases, they don't have what they call epidemiological links.
Yep.
So they know that they're connected to the cluster by the genome sequence, but they don't actually physically know how they pass from one group to the other.
Yep.
So there's 5 of those so-called mystery cases, and we still have 10 unlinked subclusters. Shouldn't we feel really uncomfortable about that?
Well, we don't have, that's the level of detail we've got. The ministry clearly has more detail than that. And what I think is also quite important is that other than infecting people within your bubble, which is highly likely with Delta, there's really three other kinds of opportunities to infect. And one is when you're out shopping or walking, and that doesn't seem to have been a problem. So people are obviously following those rules with social distancing and masking. The second is the essential workers, and in recent weeks that doesn't seem to be happening as well. So we've got on top of that. So it really leaves people behaving badly. And one of the reasons that pushed me to say, okay, I'm going to go for level 3 is I'm not convinced that that small group of people behaving badly are going to do anything different under level 3 or level 4. And so why not reward Aucklanders, the vast majority of Aucklanders who've been doing all the right things, bring them down to level 3 and focus on this small group who are behaving badly. And my guess, I mean, I don't have the inside information, but my guess is that the ministry have a lot more information on that group than they're, prepared to divulge.
Because the other thing is we've now got another little subcluster in another region, haven't we?
Yeah, but, that's probably good news because I understand that he got it, they say, on the way down. So my...
Unconfirmed, but they say it was picked up by someone, a family member, and driven to the location at level 2. Yep.
Yeah, so it's very unlikely he got it in prison. It's just too long a period, and they've been, they test a lot in prison. So he's got it on the way. So they've now identified someone out in the community, other than this case, who's got COVID. So that's probably filled in a blank that they didn't have. So in a way, it's kind of, there's a silver lining on that cloud. They've found another person in the community who hadn't been identified.
Some people might take this as a signal that we're kissing goodbye to the elimination.
No, not at all. Not at all. No, we still have to stamp it out. I mean, it'd be ridiculous not to try and stamp out this.
Can we still, though?
Yeah. I'm convinced. We certainly can do it. I'm not 100% that we're going to do it. But look, everything we're doing now is simply a stopgap measure until we all get vaccinated. The only way ahead, the only path back to normality is vaccination, because with Delta, you're either going to get vaccinated or the virus is going to get you. There's no other choice. So we have to get everyone vaccinated.
Rod, when you say you're not 100% that we will reach elimination, where are you sitting in terms about how achievable you think it is?
I think it's over 90%.
Right.
I think it's really, really high. I think it's really high. We don't seem to have that same level of. I don't want to say misbehaviour. It sounds like school kids, but the behaving badly. We've got some high-profile people who are behaving badly, and there's clearly some other people behaving badly. But it seems that it's quite a small group. It's not like what you've got in Australia.
Is it, Rod? Is it though? Because did you go out on your state-sanctioned walk on the weekend or a run or whatever? I mean, are we not getting a little bit sloppy just looking at some of the pictures?
Sloppy. Yeah, we are sloppy, but it looks like where you pass it from one person to another is generally not outside. We are sloppy outside, absolutely, and it annoys me. But you pass it to someone else when you're far more likely to pass it to someone else when you go into their household. That's where it's happening.
But could it be the situation we go to level 3 and people think, oh, the foot's off the gas now, so they get even sloppier?
Quite possibly, and we'll go back to level 4. As I said, I think we're going to be in and out of level 3, level 4 until we all get vaccinated. So
you think we'll be yo-yoing?
Quite possibly, and it may have nothing to do with this. We might get on top of this outbreak, and then there's another outbreak something else that comes through the border, because that's the thing about Delta. It's so slippery. And, I don't want to sound like a broken record, but we have to get everyone vaccinated. And 90% is not good enough. It's got to be over 95%. I mean, the Cook Islands is at 96%. The Danish people over the age of 60 are 95%. The All Blacks are 100%. The politicians are 99%. These are all achievable. People say, it's going to be hard to get to 90%. I disagree. I can't see why we can't get well over 95%.
So we're stuck at level 3 in the Auckland region for at least 2 weeks. What's your prediction for when we can go to level 2?
Well, if the cases keep on going down, we can go to level 2.
So 2 weeks, you reckon, level 3 and then moving?
Yeah, and the rest of the country. And I don't think we should go below level 2 anywhere in the country until we've got over 95% vaccinated.
I appreciate your time tonight. That is Rod Jackson, who's an Auckland University epidemiologist there. It is 18 minutes past 6 and you're with Checkpoint on RNZ National. It's been a logistical nightmare, but the Silver Ferns in England will meet in the first of 3 tests in Christchurch tonight. 4 days ago, the Silver Ferns were preparing to play without their captain and vice-captain, but exemptions came through and the Ferns' 4 Auckland-based players joined the squad late on Friday. Sports reporter Bridget Tunnicliffe is outside Christchurch Arena. Hi Bridget, so all the players but no fans tonight.
Yeah, this feels like deja vu. I was here in March when the Silver Ferns took on Australia in the Constellation Cup and it was the same scenario. We were in level 2, no crowds. They managed to get in crowds for the final test, but with the level announcements today, sadly there are going to be no crowds for the 3 tests this week. No one here lining up. So it's a financial blow to Netball New Zealand and a real shame for netball fans, but I think everyone's just relieved that this is going ahead. I do know that there will be an area sectioned off in the crowd. Up to 50 family and friends can watch on, and on Wednesday that'll expand to 100, but everyone's just relieved this is going ahead, and the new Silver Ferns captain Gina Crampton, Auckland base, will lead out the team tonight, so that's a massive bonus.
And so which side do you reckon has had the better build-up?
That's debatable. The England Roses obviously had to do 2 weeks in MIQ. They got out on the 10th of September, so they've been able to train together for 10 days. The Silver Ferns have only had a full squad together training since Saturday. I mean, that's nothing, but we know that there was the issue with the 4 Auckland-based Silver Ferns. They got exemptions at the last minute, so they were able to fly down late on Friday night. The build-up has not been ideal. Dame Nolene Taurua, the coach, has said they will be underdone. It's inevitable. And the other issue is that there were 3 support staff that also applied for exemptions to come down here. They weren't successful, so tonight you'll see a new manager on the sideline, a new team manager on the sideline, as well as a physio as well. So it's been an issue for the support staff.
So given that, what are your predictions for the series? Will England push the Silver Ferns?
Yeah, the Silver Ferns beat England last year 3-0, clean sweep, but the Roses did push them. This year, England had brought a stronger side. They've got Jiva Mentor, one of the best goalkeepers in the world, and a couple of other players that have come back from injury, that sort of thing, and they will really bolster the side. England have 3 players who have over 100 test caps. You compare that to New Zealand. Shannon Saunders has the most test caps for New Zealand, which are 80. So when you look at the test caps, England has so much more experience than us, but I would say that the ANZ Premiership is preparing players so much better than what it used to. The depth has grown, so New Zealand players are really well prepared for the rigours of international netball. I think it'll be way tighter this year. England might take 1 test off us, but I still think we're the favourites.
Thanks, Bridget. That's Bridget Tunnicliffe, who's outside the Christchurch Arena there, where England and the Silver Ferns go head-to-head tonight. And as Bridget said, a very lean crowd there, 50 family and friends due to the restrictions. To the US now, where the FBI believes it's found the body of missing Florida woman Gabby Petito. The 22-year-old hadn't been seen since her fiancé, Brian Laundrie, returned home from a cross-country road trip without her. Mr. Laundrie has been declared a person of interest in the case, but not charged with any crime. He declined to speak to police and disappeared a few days later. CNN's Randy Kay has been following the investigation.
Hello, and good morning. It is really nice and sunny today.
22-year-old Gabby Petito in happier times, documenting her travels with her fiancé cross-country on social media.
Gabby Petito never goes outside.
But along the way, the trip turned into something else.
Hi, we've just been fighting this morning. Some personal issues.
Police in Moab, Utah released this body cam video after someone called them August 12th to report disorderly conduct involving Gabby and her fiancé, Brian Laundrie. The police report noted the couple engaged in some sort of altercation. Gabby told police she struggled with OCD.
And he wouldn't let me in the car before. And then
Why wouldn't he let you in the car? Because of your OCD?
He told me I needed to calm down. Yeah. But I'm perfectly calm.
The police report described her as confused and emotional and manic. The officers didn't file any charges, but suggested the couple separate for the night.
Yes, they had a disturbance. Yes, it was captured on body camera, their interaction with law enforcement. But beyond that, I don't know what it has to do with the disappearance.
It all began on July 2nd when the couple set out from New York in Gabby's converted white 2012 Ford Transit van with Florida plates. Their plan, according to police, was to drive all the way to Yellowstone National Park, but they never made it. We've also learned Gabby was reportedly last seen at this Salt Lake City hotel on August 24th. That same day, the family's attorney says she FaceTimed with her mom, telling her she was leaving Utah and heading to the Grand Tetons. The following day, Gabby texted multiple times with her mom, likely from the Grand Tetons. On August 30th, a final text from Gabby's phone, though the attorney says her family doubts she actually wrote it. Then on September 1, her fiancé showed up at the home he and Gabby shared with his parents in Northport, Florida, in Gabby's white van. 10 days later, on September 11th, Gabby's family reported her missing.
2 people went on a trip, 1 person returned, and that person that returned isn't providing us any information.
Cassie Laundrie told ABC her brother and Gabby had been known to fight.
Typical of both of them, whenever they fight, they would take a little break and come back and be fine.
The FBI in Denver has also joined the search, aiding FBI and local authorities in Wyoming and Utah. But as the hours and days tick by, the search for answers grows, and doubts are beginning to creep in.
My gut tells me that something bad happened, and I'm never going to be able to hold my baby girl again.
With international travel off the cards in so many countries, we've been encouraged to see more of our own backyard. And in China, this has led to an explosion in, wait for it, surfing. The BBC's Stephen McDonnell reports from tropical Hainan Island, the country's southernmost point.
Waves roll in and hit the beaches of Hainan Island. In the distance, you can hear music playing in the little bars and cafes, which have popped up along the coast to cater for China's booming surf scene. Yes, you heard it right. China, surfing, booming.
I tried many times before I could finally stand up. At first, I couldn't even hold the board.
It's new for me. Friends recommended this place, saying it's beautiful.
Locals have been surfing on Hainan for years, but it was a pretty niche sport. Now there's been a huge influx of would-be surfers. Who to thank for it? The coronavirus. Because of the pandemic, overseas holidays have been virtually impossible, so travellers have been heading to Hainan off China's south coast.
Suddenly, people are really willing to learn surfing. When I first started, there were very few surfers in China.
Cici Young was on China's women's surfing team. Seeing people flooding onto Hainan Island to have a go at surfing, she and a few friends set up a surf school, which now employs 6 coaches.
People like surfing. I like teaching them, so I decided to start this company.
Cici's school, Dynamode, is one of many such schools which have set up recently on the island. On the day we visit, the students, many not confident in the water at all, start on a lake with stand-up paddleboarding. There's a lot of falling off to begin with. Eventually they progress to the ocean and take on the typhoon-fuelled waves. At the beaches in Wanning or Hohai, you enter the water only to be surrounded by novice surfers.
This beach is full of people learning how to surf. There is no doubt that there is a major surf craze here. Thing is that in other parts of the world, People who've become really good at surfing, they live next to the coast and they go out most days. It's the only way to really build up your skill level. But the coaches here are telling us that despite that, they're getting students coming back throughout the year, time and again, to have another crack at it.
It's my first time surfing, really fun but tiring. I
really like the surfer lifestyle. I can't have it all the time, but it's nice to feel it when I'm surfing.
The big question, though, after the world goes back to something approaching normal, will this kill the Hainan surf explosion, or will the scene survive? Cece thinks there's no turning back.
Surfing can be really addictive. They will still come.
And looking around at the fun being had right now in this beautiful place, it's hard to fault her logic.
As you can imagine, lots of feedback still on MIQ and the level changes. This person says, who are all these close contacts that keep getting added every day? It's very opaque and the government is not saying. These numbers will keep rolling up and down for weeks like this. Who are these people? Good question. I can't work it out either. Another person says it is not at all reasonable to keep the rest of the country in lockdown based on what? It seems as if the rest of the country is being punished to prevent Aucklanders straying from their level. Why not be fairer to everyone by locking travel between regions, but putting the rest of the country out of lockdown where they belong? I think they're meaning drop them down a level. Simon from Auckland says, I'm happy that we are going to level 3, but worry that there's too many sloppy plonkers who will act as if we are already in level 2 or level 1. I'd be surprised if we don't yo-yo between levels until we have everyone fully vaccinated. On MIQ, this person says some of these people have had lots of times to get home. Lots just want to come home for the summer, and we know lots in the 25 plus age group who just want a Christmas holiday, again having come home last year. Wal's got in touch. Wal, can I read this? Wal says James Shaw is a big fat hypocrite. I think big fat anything Wal has been cancelled. So beware. Another person says the black caps, did they have to go into the draw for MIQ places? Ha ha, what a joke, says Janice. And Anne's got in touch about our interview with Grant Robertson to say thanks to Grant for coming on to confirm that regarding MIQ, all animals are equal, but some animals are more equal than others, says Anne. And another person says the black caps, wallabies, and of course the All Blacks will all get MIQ spots. That's about all we've got time for. Now, the late news team will of course keep you updated throughout the night. Ko te kaupapa tuatahi a pōpō, and tomorrow from 5 a.m. First Up speaks to hospitality businesses and florists prepping to open in alert level 3. Kia pai tōpō.
Kia ora tātou, RNZ News headlines at 6:30. Ko Sarah Thompson tōku ingoa. The Prime Minister says lockdown has done its job in helping contain COVID-19 in Tāmaki Makaurau, but they